Good morning. This is Dimitri Lascaris reporting from Montreal, Canada. I am joined today by a Lebanese-Canadian journalist by the name of Nada Raphaël. Nada, for several years, has been a correspondent for RDI, the French language arm of Canada's national broadcaster, the CBC. And we're going to talk to her today about the situation in Lebanon, and particularly what the significance of the drone strike in Beirut is likely to be. Thank you very much for joining me today, Nada.
Thank you, Dimitri, for talking to me and for actually enlightening people on this part of the conflict and this part of, the word that, a lot of people tend to forget.
Well, I was introduced, to Lebanon this year. I made 2 trips there. As you know, I had the privilege of being accompanied by you to various parts of the country, particularly the border. That was really an eye-opener for me. And one thing that was immediately striking to me, something that can't escape anybody who travels to Lebanon, is that the country is experiencing a severe economic crisis. Could you tell us, in general terms, prior to October 7th of last year, when Palestinian militants launched their offensive in the areas around Gaza, what was the prevailing economic situation in Lebanon at that time?
Well, actually, the economics in Lebanon have been very hard, and it started in 2019. In 2019, a lot of protests happened all the country, in all Lebanon, because there was a huge inflation, and people started, they were wondering how to actually pay their bills and everything. And slowly, what happened, the devaluation of the Lebanese pound started, devaluating really quickly. And people started losing a lot of hope and losing their money, because the banks directly started reducing how much money you could withdraw from the bank. So imagine you had, I don't know how many $1,000 at the bank, you could only withdraw $100, then $200 a month, which would be like a disaster and a scandal. And plus, we were relying a lot on a lot of products coming from outside of Lebanon, who were all priced in US dollars. And since the Lebanese pound was devaluating really quickly and people were paid in Lebanese pound, so people could not afford to even buy a lot of food, a lot of kind of, like, for example, wheat, for example, a lot of stuff that we use in the Lebanese cuisine, but also stuff for babies, medicines, etc., etc. And slowly, because of this inflation and because of the fact that a lot of people, and especially people working in the public industries or working for the government or etc., were only paid in Lebanese pounds, they saw their salaries going down from, for example, $1,000 a month to $40 a month. What can you do with $40 a month? Now, of course, they could rely on a lot of help from, neighborhoods, families, etc., etc., and they could afford a lot of the local producers, because the local produce were only, if you want, sold at the Lebanese pound rate, so they could afford it. But slowly, because we stopped doing a lot of producers in Lebanon, because everyone was relying on the stuff that coming from outside of Lebanon, we started having problems because there was no more things we could buy. So from 2019 till today, everything, let's say that people lost their money. People could not access their own money or the money they left, aside in the banks. The salaries went down completely. The Lebanese pound, $1 used to be 1,500 Lebanese pound. Today, $1 is 89,700 Lebanese pounds. So when you are still paid at the 1,500 Lebanese pound rate, you cannot afford anything. So people started panicking, of course. But because we are Lebanese and because we know we have lived a lot of crises during the past and everything, and because also we had COVID, so a lot of things stopped and everything, people started creating and they started actually planting and creating. Agriculture changed completely. So let's say that last year, we started a bit adjusting. Not everybody, but at least a lot of people started adjusting to the fact that, you know what, at the end of the day, we don't have money in the banks anymore. Let's see what we can do. So we had, for example, pasta produced in Lebanon. Even now, the wheat is planted in Lebanon, etc., etc. So people started, you know, if you want, creating new things. And we were starting to get out of the situation only this year. And boom, October 7 happened. Now, people tend to think October 7 happened, but not in Lebanon, in Palestine. You know, it's two different countries. Why the impact is actually here, and how did it impact actually Lebanon? We know that all these countries are linked on many different things. If we go back to history, Lebanon and Palestine were actually, I'm not going to say the same country, but they're neighbor country, like Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, relate on each other's, and the productions and everything could go from Syria to Lebanon to Palestine. So everything was interlinked. And when the conflict hit one of these countries, of course, every country is affected. So in October 2023, what happened is that first thing that happened, fear. 7 October 2023 happened. On 10 October 2023, all the embassies, the international embassies in Lebanon, started calling their people and tell them, get out of Lebanon. Here, you create a huge fuss. You create chaos. And people start asking, why do you want me to get out of Lebanon? Nothing is happening in Lebanon. It is in Palestine. It's not happening in Lebanon. And then you have messages, stress messages. Every 2 minutes, you have messages from the American embassy, from the Canadian embassy, from the Ukrainian embassy. You have messages from the French embassy, from every embassy asking people get out of Lebanon. And
so the Ukrainian embassy was asking its citizens to go where exactly to
absolutely
to go back to the war in Ukraine.
Absolutely. And when I got the message, I was like, really? So anyways, it was chaos, right? So people started, you know, thinking, okay, we are living in an economic crisis. We are just starting to get out from this economic crisis, not getting out, starting to, meaning that we are just starting to adjust to, you know, the fact, to understand that when you see, for example, 700,000 Lebanese pound, it doesn't mean $500, but it means $7. You know, in the mind of people, you have to adjust to a lot of things. It's huge to go to see a product, for example, to see a cheese for 700,000 Lebanese pound, which used to be 2 years ago $500, which was actually half of any salary. And now the 700,000 Lebanese pound was only $7. Okay, so we were just, you know, starting to adjust to the situation and everything, and boom, chaos again. People are asking everybody to get out of Lebanon. Then you see stuff happening all around you. You see actually planes coming in, planes coming out. You have boats coming directly with a lot of munitions and everything being sent to Israel. You have a lot of different things happening, and people are just wondering in Lebanon, okay, wait, whoa, we just are, you know, starting to get out. We had the blast, the economic crisis, and why us? All right. And this is every Lebanese. Forget about where they come from, forget about the different kind of, you know, social stand that you have, forget about your religion, forget about anything. People were like just wondering what is happening in Lebanon. Mm-hmm. And then what happened in October, we just didn't understand how it started. We didn't understand how it started because, you know, media, as you know, Dimitri, you were here, media tend to be, let's say, overreacting sometimes or covering one angle and not the other. So you cannot really rely only on media. So you have to watch several media to understand a bit the situation and to understand what is the view, how is the view, etc., etc. So people started panicking here, and then we saw slowly, people leaving Lebanon. So people who had still the luxury to have a passport, because we had also the crisis of passport, and we couldn't renew our Lebanese passports for a while. And people were just starting to open up the passport renewal, all right? So you had a lot of people who don't have a passport even now, but the people who had the luxury to have the passport and a bit of money aside and somebody, family or whatever abroad, just left. They didn't ask for more, they left. Of course, tourists were in the middle of their tours and their embassy calling them. They left their tours in the middle of the tours and just started packing and leave. More than that, expats, a lot of expats who were planning to come to Lebanon October, November, and especially now during the holidays in December, started saying, okay, let's cancel our flight. They canceled our flight to come to Lebanon. And then things started to go up a notch. When I say go up a notch, it's that we started seeing a lot of things moving on the borders, on what we call the blue line. So this line that was traced by the UN in Lebanon with this border that was traced between Lebanon and Palestine. And
before we talk about the border, because I definitely want to ask you about that.
Absolutely.
Could you just talk to us in general terms about sort of the demographics and the politics of South Lebanon, these areas bordering on Israel? Because it is, as I understand, a particular part of the country where the politics and the demographics may not necessarily be the same as they are elsewhere, particularly in Beirut or the north of the country. So could you tell us about that? And then I would like very much to know, because we hear so little about what is actually happening on that border, particularly from the Lebanese side, that I think it's important to get into some detail about that.
Okay. All right. Lebanon is a bit complicated. When we talk about Lebanon in general, the politics of Lebanon and everything is a bit complicated because Dimitri, that we have a state that is based on religion. And the state that is today elected is still elected on the census that was made in 1932. So the demographic and the census that was actually made, and the last one made in 1932. So today, when we talk about a government, we talk about a government that is very religious based on the census of 1932, which is completely wrong. Let's face it, it's not that anymore at all. And we cannot talk about statistic. I don't like to talk about numbers, because whatever number I give you, I will be wrong, because it is all biased. But you can analyze, you can see what you see on the field, but you cannot give accurate numbers today. Now, based on the fact that we don't have a president, the last president we have was last October 2022. So we've been without president for a year now. And without president, of course, there is also a lot of chaos. Okay, so the political parties are trying, if you want, each one of them to present a new president or everything. So already you have a very chaotic government that cannot take any decision. So the country is a bit left, it's chaos everywhere, because you don't have anything. Even the laws are not here anymore. So it's been a year. Everything is really loose on every side. Even taxes, there's no taxes, there's nothing, I'm laughing, but it's very sad because it's really chaotic. So once you understand this and you see the demographic of the country today is also very chaotic, because when you talk about South Lebanon, depending on who you are and what you see, there are two souths of Lebanon. For some people, south of Lebanon is only on the coast, meaning that from Beirut to Tyre, and the rest is not even important for a lot of Lebanese and a lot of expats and a lot of people, because they only hear about Saida, Sidon, and Tyre, and the rest is just whatever. It's not even held by the government.
Just to give people a geographical sense, Tyre, this coastal city in Lebanon, approximately how far is that from the border with Israel?
It's about 35 kilometers.
Okay, so it's not that far. But anyway, please continue.
Absolutely. So we can say that actually Tyre is the last a big coastal city before the borders. After that, you have 2-3 tiny cities, but it's like more towns than cities. But Tyre is like the big hub, the last big hub on the coast before the border with, we call it Palestine and not Israel here. So the border with Palestine. All right. So after Tyre, that's what we call the blue zone. And the blue zone, you have actually, if you look on a map, you would actually see that from Tyre going up to what we call Kfar Kila, this is actually all the towns that are not far from the border with Palestine. And this is what we call the blue zone. Today, it's not only the blue zone, it's the red zone because it is forbidden to go there completely. Like even no journalists are actually today allowed to go there. When we were there together in October, Dimitri, we could actually go. Today, you can forget having a permit to go there because a lot of journalists were targeted there. All right.
Is this true throughout the blue zone, right up
Yes.
to the border with, I think, Syria? So it's not just the coastal area; it's that
No.
entire strip of land bordering on Palestine that is off limits.
Absolutely. Now it is completely off limit.
Right.
So the demographic of this part. So if I go until Tyre, it's something. But on the blue zone, when we talk about Tyre going up to the border with Syria, you have a lot of different villages. You have villages that are only Shia, Muslim Shia. You have villages that are Christian. Some are Maronite, others are Catholics or Orthodox. And you have mixed villages where you would see Christian and Muslim Shia living together. And you have 2 or 3 towns that are Sunni. Okay? So this is a bit, if you want, the demographic, if I talk about the religious demographic of this part of South Lebanon. But we have to be very careful when we talk about South Lebanon to include, if you want to include the whole South Lebanon, meaning directly after Beirut, so the suburbs of Beirut, what we call the south of Beirut or the suburbs of Beirut, we start in Khalde, which is actually around 15 minutes from Beirut, to on the coast, Naura, which is the last town after Tyre, and going up all the villages that we hear a lot on the news today. We're talking about Naura, Ait al-Sha'ab, Alma al-Sha'ab, Al-Labune, Aitarun, going up to Kfar Kila, Khiem, Kfar Shuba, and all these actually villages, okay? So now the big problem is after Tyre. So what we call the Qada, which is actually the department of Tyre, is not only the city. The department of Tyre is the city with all the surrounding areas. The surrounding areas are in the blue zone. The city for now was not targeted yet, okay? And I have to stress on yet, because a lot of people were actually left their villages to go live in Tyre, and some of them are actually now living in schools waiting to go back to their villages.
And is it fair to describe Tyre as a stronghold of Hezbollah?
You cannot really say that because it's not only Hezbollah that is there. You have Hezbollah, you also have Amal, which is another Shia party, but you also have
allied with Hezbollah.
Not always, but in that case, yes, but not always. It depends on the views and everything. But you also have a lot of Christians also in Tyre. You have almost 30% of Christians, which is also very important to mention. And you also have a big Palestinian camp that is south of Tyre, which is al-Rashidiyya. And a lot of people, tend to forget that the missiles that are thrown or that are shot from the borders are not only the Hezbollah or the Lebanese, but some of them come from the Palestinian camp of Rashidiyya. Okay, so you have all this that go together because, when people think about the south of Lebanon, they only see Hezbollah, yellow flag against, etc. It's not only that, all right? So it's a mix of a lot of things, all right? Now, talking about the demographic, when you were here, Dimitri, and when the war started in October, a lot of people did not align with what was happening in Palestine. A lot of people, especially on the Christian side, were actually frustrated because in their mind, every time something happens in Palestine, it has repercussions here in Lebanon, and a lot of things stopped. So a lot of people were angry and were asking the Hezbollah, please do not launch, do not do anything. It's their war. It's not our war. Let them, let them deal with it. We are with Palestine, but we don't want to, to go to war and everything. And a lot of Shia also were against the fact that anybody could actually answer or anything. But that was back in October. It was the beginning of the war. The more the genocide continued in Palestine, the more people felt angry. Because there's something also we have to say, and something that also we tend to forget. It's that a lot of Lebanese, okay, their parents and their grandparents were born in Jerusalem, but left after the creation of 1948. And there are a lot of those people who are Christian, not only Muslim, not only, and don't have any party. And a lot of them came to Lebanon to hide their identity and, enter, if you want, and try as much as they can, stay incognito in the different communities of Lebanon, not talking about their Palestinian heritage. Those people didn't speak in the beginning of the war on Palestine in October, but now they're angrier than ever. And we see people coming forward more and more and saying, you know what, my aunt was Palestinian. You know what, my parents were born in Jerusalem. You know what, and you, more and more, you actually meet people, a lot of people living in Lebanon or abroad, expats, or etc., who have the Lebanese passport, but who, they still have their heritage coming from Palestine. So this is also something that I would like to mention because a lot of people don't know that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So now about the demographic and everything, it is very diverse. You cannot target the south of Lebanon as being pro-Hezbollah or pro-Hamas or pro-Christian rightist or pro-whatever. You have everything. You have a lot of people that are pro this and pro that, and you have a lot of people who say, enough, we just want to live. Enough, we want our lands back. Enough, deal with your stuff outside of our lands, because whenever anything happens in Palestine, it has repercussions in the south of Lebanon. And you also have the rest of Lebanese people, where you have people who act as if the south of Lebanon was not here, was not even part of Lebanon, is not even part of Lebanon, and they don't have any attachment to it. And for them, the war is far. So there's no war in Lebanon. And they pray that there will never be war in Lebanon, which is wrong because war is here, right? And you have the other side of Lebanon where everybody is very down and stressed and thinking about what's happening in the south to their brothers and sisters and colleagues and friends and etc., saying, my God, what's happening in Lebanon? But everything is so diverse, okay? Right. So you cannot target it in a religion or in a specific social standing or whatever.
So let's talk about the actual developments from a military perspective. And I know you're not a military expert, neither am I, but we do our best with the information we have. And, I follow some Telegram channels, one in particular, as I mentioned to you before we started our discussion today, which presents, shall we say, the resistance's perspective on this conflict. It presents their information about attacks, their information about casualties, their information about, Israel's behavior, the Israeli government's behavior, its objectives. And one of the interesting things about these sources of information, these Telegram channels which present that perspective, is that they are reporting that there are multiple attacks being launched by Hezbollah fighters and sometimes by Palestinian militants from South Lebanon into what I'm going to call Israeli territory, just to simplify the discussion, every day, every single day. And these reports are quite detailed in the sense that they give you the precise time of the attack. They tell you what was attacked, the location, the village, what the military target was, because they are claiming that they are targeting military objects. And they'll give you some information to the best of their ability, I imagine, about casualties sustained by the Israeli military. And sometimes these reports, so not only are they detailed, sometimes they're accompanied by videos, which apparently have been produced by, usually by Hezbollah, but sometimes by some other resistance group if they launch the attack. So you compare this information that we're getting to what we see in the Western media, and there's a stark disparity because there's virtually nothing being said in the Western media about attacks emanating from South Lebanon onto Israeli military targets in the north of Israel or Palestine. What do you believe the reality to be based upon what you've seen in your sources in South Lebanon?
It is very complicated, Dimitri, because whatever I say and however I say it, it's a bit difficult to say because so many things are happening at the same time. All right, you have the stress of living in Lebanon now, with all again these embassies calling, for people to leave and whatever. The economy of people, especially that I'm not, that I'm not only a journalist, I work in tourism, and we have a lot of people, agriculture and women that work in the south of Lebanon who are calling for help. Please help us sell our products. Our products are, are being targeted, hit, etc., etc. So you have this, and you also have you want to put words, and you want to put actually the fault on someone, and you want to say, okay, the Hezbollah is launching the missiles, and this is what's happening here and here and here. But also there is a reality that we cannot also omit. I know that I also saw a lot of people from the north of Lebanon in the city of Tripoli that are being paid to come in buses from Tripoli to the south of Lebanon to launch missiles and go back to Tripoli the same day. So this is one. Two, you have a lot of Hezbollah partisans that are not really members of the army, but they are partisans who are actually there because they are very frustrated, and or they need money, or they have family in Palestine, or they are really drawn to the cause and everything, that are also launching missiles. You also have Palestinians.
Sorry, you're saying these are regular forces of the Lebanese army, the national army?
Not the national army. They are partisans of Hezbollah. They can be army, they can be just civilians. Not talking about army.
So you're talking about a segment of the people who serve in the Lebanese National Army who are sympathetic to Hezbollah or to the Palestinian cause, but
some of them are, but we cannot today. I cannot talk about what's happening nationally in Lebanon, because again, it's chaos here. You don't have anything. We are not, if I want to talk legally, and if I want to talk in a government perspective, the government is not in war. They didn't state that we are on a war, whatever level. It's a conflict. It's still at the stage of conflict. And the Lebanese army is not officially or mandated to actually do anything or launch anything, even if they want to defend themselves, to actually launch a missile or anything. So the Lebanese army, so a dude in the uniform, cannot actually act in the name of the nation, in the name of the country, because they are not allowed to do so, because the nation, if you want, Lebanon, even if I don't call it a nation between us, but the Lebanese is not in a state of war. Okay? So you have civilians, you have partisans, you have Hezbollah, you have the Qassam, the part of actually the Palestinian militias, you have the Palestinian people, you have people that are paid here and there that are also launching missiles. And you have regular people who are defending their lands. Because what we hear and what we don't really hear, we hear them here, but we don't really hear them anywhere else in the world. The phosphorus bombs that are used in the south of Lebanon, that are attacking the fields in the south of Lebanon, that a lot of Israelis are also using in South Gaza, but that are used also in the lands here in Lebanon. from Hayt al-Shab to Al-Mashab to Hayt Arun, and I can tell you, I saw them with my own eyes. I saw the fields with my own eyes.
This is after,
burned
talking about after October 7th?
after October 7th.
Right.
And it started in November. Fields, Dimitri, of thousands of olive trees that are burned to ground. Some trees that are more than 400, 500, 600 years old that were burned completely with phosphorus bomb. And the danger, and we know all the danger of phosphorus bomb, you know, the phosphorus actually, when it reacts with the oxygen, it can actually continue burning for like, unless there's no more oxygen, right?
Mhm.
So the problem, it goes inside the soil. And the people who are losing their lands with the phosphorus bomb cannot plant anymore for at least 5 years and sometimes up to 20 years. So you have lots of, if I want to talk only about environmental issues, all the lands that are directly on the borders are not usable anymore. So all these farmers, agricultural, who have nothing to do with Hezbollah or with any kind of militia, who are regular people, okay, are losing their lands. So a lot of them are also angry and starting to defend themselves too. Some of them, they got depressed, they left, they went to neighboring cities and villages and everything. But some of them are actually, you know, reacting, which is normal, right? So you have all this on the board. Yes, you have the Hezbollah is actually sending and reacting to whatever Israel is doing. Now, of course, in the propaganda, in the media, in the propaganda, in everything, people say Hezbollah started, other people say no, Qassam started, other people say no, Israel started, no, whatever, we will never know what really happened on the border. What we know today is that every day, and I'm not saying every day, every hour, there is something happening in South Lebanon. Missiles going out and bombs coming in every hour. And I can tell you that slowly, from October till today, this strand of villages that was actually from Naura to Kfar Kila is starting to grow inland more and more. Now they are hitting the villages, inside villages and civilian houses and buildings more and more. They started with Hayt Arun, they started with Labune, they started also with Bint Jbeil, which is actually a huge city that was completely destroyed in 2006 by the Israeli also airstrikes. And now it was rebuilt and now is starting to be destroyed again. You have also a lot of cars that are being hit. A lot of cars. People like the big joke now in Lebanon, which is, I like to call it black humor. The big joke actually is the Rapid. The Rapid are the small white vans of people that people use to actually take merchandise from here and there, and they're often, you know, used by agriculture people that, you know, they remove their products and everything, and sometimes it is used by, you know, people to remove weapons and everything. Every single one of them is being hit. Not only journalists are being hit. Today, if you want to go there as a journalist, you never wear your press or your casque or whatever because you know you're going to be hit. Because they are hitting press as if we don't want you to tell or to say whatever is happening in the south of Lebanon. So what we are getting today is a lot of videos and stuff that are not only filmed by the Hezbollah, but also by civilians, by people who are shooting with their phones. I am on hundreds of groups, on Telegram, but also on WhatsApp and everything. Unfortunately, 99% of these groups actually are in Arabic, and all the news are in Arabic and everything. But you see that a lot of people are filming from their balconies, a lot of people, etc. And you have also Hezbollah people, Qassam people, civilians that are also shooting whatever is happening. And they want to state numbers because you also have this sense, I don't know if you have this sense also on the news there, you also have this sense that we are talking about a lot of numbers of Palestinians that are dying. The numbers are growing and growing. But in the Israeli part, you never know how many people really died and how many people were injured. So you have the sense that here from Lebanon, they're trying to tell people, look, we killed 25 people today, we injured 100 people, noted that it is being done, etc., etc. It is a war of media, it is a war of propaganda. And this is another thing also I want to talk about, is that, I started by telling you that a lot of people and a lot of, people were not concerned with the war that was happening in Palestine, and they were actually taking a bit of side and saying, it's happening there and not here, it's not our problem, etc. Those people are starting to change their mind because they're seeing what's happening. Because there's also another fact. When you look at the news, how many Christian Palestinian are you seeing targeted by Israel? How many Jews do you see being hit by Zionists? Not a lot. But if you look on a lot of pages, on a lot of independent journalists, independent activists, independent people that are actually in Palestine, you will actually find out that a lot of Palestinian Christians are being killed. A lot of Jews that are against the Zionism and against the government are being hit by the military in Israel. And when people here are starting to see that, they're starting to relate to if you want to relate to that, and they're starting to get more and more angry. And now you have people who say, we don't want war in Lebanon, we stand with Palestinians, but we are not with Hamas and Hezbollah, because it's two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's how it develops.
So can we talk now about the events of this week, in particular in South Beirut? This is this very important context you've given us, but of course there was something which many regard as a major escalation. Certainly that's the way people are talking about it over here. And that is on January 2nd, it appears that an Israeli drone fired missiles into a building in a southern suburb of Beirut, where a senior commander, the deputy political head of Hamas, a man by the name of Saleh Aruri, was assassinated. I also understand there were other casualties. So first, can you just tell us what do you think we know about this attack? Who was killed in it? How was it in fact? Was it in fact a drone? Were there any innocent bystanders who were killed? So just sort of the facts of the attack itself. What do you think is generally clear at this stage about that attack?
Look, before just talking about the attack, I just want to say from October to now, Israel has been sending messages and even, sending papers in south of Lebanon saying, if Hezbollah moves, we're going to attack Beirut. And it's been going on since October. And things didn't really escalate before, I would say, 4 weeks ago, when they started going slowly inland. Now,
you're talking about the Israeli attacks were coming further north.
Further north. So still in the south of Lebanon, but further inland. So going out of, if you want, what we call the blue line, and going in further in the south, but towards Beirut, all right? And hitting more and more civilians. So it's been 3-4 weeks where everything is a bit changing, because we are losing civilians, we are losing farmers, we are losing people, etc. Now, keeping that in mind, I also told you that a lot of embassies in October started asking the people to get out of Lebanon, right? And 3-4 weeks ago, weird enough, the first embassy who asked her people to come back to Lebanon with the ambassador and everything was the American embassy. They came back to Lebanon and they restarted working as if nothing was happening. And slowly, because we have a lot of clients in the Swedish embassies, in the German embassy, in the French embassy, they came back to Lebanon, called us, hey, we're back, we're starting to operate again from Lebanon. So everybody thought that everything's going to be okay, right? So let's, live life. And then a lot of expats who canceled their trip to Lebanon started coming in to for Christmas and for all the vacation and everything. And I'm not talking only Christian, like a lot of people like Shia, Christians, Muslims, Sunnis, etc., coming back to Lebanon to, you know, to live the Christmas spirits and the end of year vacation and everything in Lebanon. So we had 450,000 people coming in Lebanon directly in December, and the streets were filled with decoration suddenly, and you know, partying and parties and New Year party and whatever. So nobody thought that it would escalate. On January 2nd, when the 2 missiles were actually shot in the suburbs of Beirut, it was 2 missiles. Now, one on a building and one on a car. Okay? Everybody was shaking. Everybody was like, oh my God, okay, wait, whoa, what's happening? And then you have all these messages coming in, and people started saying, no, it's fake news. This was, it was a thing that exploded in a house. Other people said that it was an engine that, you know, was very old or whatever. And people didn't believe it, right? And then slowly, it came with the cameras and everything. We had CCTV cameras who actually shot the moment of the explosion, and it was directly shown that it was something coming from above and that hit the building, specifically the building and the car, so 2 of them. It took a bit of time. And here, in 5 minutes, I was in the middle of the streets of Beirut. In 5 minutes, everybody went back home, as if it was the end of the world. That's what happened, you know? Now, again, you know that since people don't have a lot of answers here in Lebanon, knowing that when the August blast of Beirut happened in 2020, we don't even have now explanation on how it happened. Some people remembered that they had heard drones attacking the port of Beirut. A lot of people started linking what happened in the suburbs of Beirut with the explosion of the port of Beirut. But then again, another chaotic messages and different journalists, different interpretation and everything. And then they announced the death of actually this really important Palestinian militant, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And slowly, the Hezbollah started talking about also the loss of a lot of partisans of the Hezbollah, and they stated that they were going to meet up with Hassan Nasrallah on the 3rd of January, and that's why the missiles happened. And of course, now they're looking for the traitor who actually gave up the location of the building and the car.
So who else was killed in that attack besides Aruri?
It is said that you have different reports. Some reports say 7 people. Now people are saying about 9 people, 3 civilians, and 4 or 5 people that are really close to Hassan Nasrallah in the Hezbollah movement.
And so these three civilians, is the understanding they just were, you know, I hate this term, but collateral damage, that they weren't
absolutely
right? Okay.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Absolutely. Which happens, unfortunately, it's unfortunate, but it is the reality of any conflict or any war or any etc.
Mm-hmm.
So, and weird enough, yesterday, so on the 3rd of January, it was planned long time ago that actually the leader of the Hezbollah, so the secretary of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, was going to talk on the TVs and everything, and everybody was, you know, waiting for his talk on anything. And everybody, of course, when Hassan Nasrallah talks in Lebanon, everybody go back home. Nobody's on the street, nobody's moving, nobody's whatever, because everybody's waiting to see what is he going to say. Was he going to react on what happened on the 2nd of January, or was he just going to commemorate the death of I forgot the name of the dude who he was commemorating, etc. This being said, the surprise came because the interpretation of what Hassan Nasrallah said yesterday was really different from expected, because he didn't say anything that would move to another step or to who would say that we are going to react or not. It was really vague. The interpretation of different, not only politicians, but experts on politics and that know really well how they operate and everything, was that he's just said, I'm going to talk about what happened yesterday on Friday, which is tomorrow, So meanwhile, what happened in Lebanon? Embassies started again to tell their people, come out of Lebanon, it's dangerous, don't stay here, etc. Honestly, I got maybe 25 messages today only of people telling me, get out of Lebanon. Second thing that happened today, this afternoon, I never saw that. A lot of military airplanes were in the airport of Beirut, taking out the officials from Beirut out of Lebanon. And everybody's waiting for whatever Hassan Nasrallah has to say.
And you're talking, but what countries, to the extent you were able to determine this, do these military craft come from?
They did not say, but what we know is Canadian embassies ask people to go out, French embassies, Germany embassies, the US also. All these are actually asking people to get out of Lebanon. But
the Ukrainian embassy?
I don't know. I didn't hear Ukraine yet. But wait. You never know. Maybe tomorrow.
All right. So
anyway.
let me switch to the future then. And I understand, obviously the speech tomorrow that Nasrallah will deliver may be much more enlightening for all of us. But based on what we know and what he said thus far, what is your expectation as to how Hezbollah is going to react to this? I mean, I'm not asking you, obviously, to identify a specific military target. That's beyond our capacity to do. But in general terms, do you believe that he will prioritize that? And that's not just Nasrallah. Obviously, there's a leadership of Hezbollah that is going to be involved in the decision, I would imagine. But whoever the decision makers may be, do you believe that they are going to prioritize avoiding an escalation to a full-blown war? Or do you think that they're going to prioritize sending a message to Israel that it cannot engage in these sorts of assassinations, especially outside of the zone where the conflict has been concentrated thus far, without paying a severe price? Or do you think they're going to try to balance these two goals and, on the one hand, take some risk of an escalation leading to all-out war, but at the same time, moderate the risk and not react, for example, by launching a huge missile barrage at Haifa and causing massive damage, potentially to civilian infrastructure and civilians? What do you think the inclination of Hezbollah's leadership is at this time, based upon what you've heard and seen?
It's a question that is very hard to answer, because until now, you have biased feeling, you try to analyze, you try to see, but then every time you analyze something else happens. And there are too many people, too many countries that are involved in this conflict. We're not talking about a small conflict where it's happening between a country and a militia in Palestine, which I like to call it a country and a militia, because it's supposed to be two different countries or two different states or two different, but it's not. There are so many things that are happening worldwide where you cannot really take a decision. You can only analyze and see whatever is happening. You see that the states are trying, that were very firm on we stand with Israel, etc., are standing less and less, but at the same time are also sending a lot of weapons to Israel. But there was a fight that was like a phone call that everybody was suspicious of between Biden and Netanyahu, that everybody are hoping that it's going to actually create this separation completely, and that would calm down the area. I'm very skeptic, but I don't know. You have this. Two, you also have the fact that Hezbollah is not the only actor here. You have Iran that have also a lot to play, but you also have all the neighboring countries. We're talking about Lebanon and Palestine, but we forget that there is also Yemen, there's also Syria, there is also Palestine, there's Lebanon, but there's also all the Arab countries that are surrounding, like the Qatari, like the Emirati, like all these people who have also a huge role to play. So today we are at this, when this conflict started, my only thing was like, oh my God, it's going to be long. It's going to be like, it's going to take ages. It's not going to come down today. It's not something that I see ending like, boom, everything is going to be, and everything is going to end like in a week or two or a month or two. I think it's a very long process because there are too many actors here and there. And there are too many damages that can be done to different countries. And if everybody, if I see this right, we're going to a third world war. If everything we analyze as, we see the situation and we analyze it, and me, honestly, it freaks me out. Because I look at that not only as a, small little conflict. Today we're looking at something huge, big. Because you also have all the economic crises that are happening everywhere in the world, in Canada, in the States, in Europe. You have a lot of loss of money. You have a lot of people who are losing their jobs. There's so much stress in the world right now that you cannot actually remove this conflict from the whole world and say, okay, this is only a conflict and it's not going to hit anybody else. It is too important, and it can be the heart of something that can explode and unbalance the whole world. Now, this being said,
if I understand what you're saying correctly, and by the way, if I am understanding you correctly, I'm in complete agreement with it. You seem to be suggesting that through a variety of factors, not simply what is in the mindset of Hezbollah's leadership, what are its priorities, but a variety of factors that are at play throughout the region, we are on a trajectory that will lead inevitably to a massive regional war unless something dramatically changes. And that's baked in at this stage, pretty much regardless of what Hassan Nasrallah and his colleagues in the leadership decide to do in response to this particular attack. Is that a fair summary of how you see things?
It is a fair summary. And on the other hand, Dimitri, there's also something that is, very weird. Like, who is the Hezbollah? They are the small, it's not the leaders of the world, right? We are the country that, if you look at Lebanon on the map, it's a point on the world, right? It's like a really point. And you have this militia that is the Hezbollah, that is this point, this black point, but everybody waits for him as if he was the hero, the Marvel, I don't know, the someone that everybody's waiting for.
Captain Lebanon.
Exactly, Captain Lebanon, absolutely, or Captain Arab World, I don't know.
Right.
But you wait for his decision as if this decision is going to actually balance everything, everywhere, Yeah. But we know that behind this, there are so many different strategic points and whatever. Like, if, for example, let's say that tomorrow Hassan Nasrallah said, okay, I'm not accepting what's happening in Dahi, because this is what he said today, but in a very diplomatic way. He said, I don't accept what's happening. They're targeting Dahi, which is actually Beirut, which is the heart of Beirut, which is etc. Which, just to make things clear, a lot of people don't believe that Dahi is the heart of Beirut. But anyways, also biased. So the heart of Beirut, you targeted the heart of Beirut, and we are going to answer. Same things that Netanyahu is being, he's in a way saying, if you do that, I'm going to do this. If you do this, I'm going to do that. There's this whole, as if, we are in the middle of an action, a suspense, and people are trying to gain more time. As if, there's something cooking, but we don't want to say what. So anyways, if, for example, tomorrow he says, okay, great, this happened, whatever, I declare war. Okay, to declare war. What's going to happen? The American withdrew a lot of their aircrafts and everything, warcrafts, let's say, from Israel. what's going to happen? Like Israel is going to launch like 25,000 different planes and just like bomb Lebanon from the south to the north of Lebanon and eradicate Lebanon like they're doing in Palestine. What's going to happen? Hezbollah suddenly are going to have the help of all the international whatever country, and out of, from inside the earth, they're going to come with the atomic bomb and throw it. What's going to happen? So we're here at the brink of something that is really more important. It's like as if the media are making us wait for something huge and bigger, but what is it? We don't know. And this is the big, not knowing is worse than being in the middle of a war. But because at least when there is a war, it's a war. Who is fighting it? Against who? For what? You have these three things that we know, exactly. Here we don't know anything. We don't know anything. We saw Netanyahu in the beginning talking about this map that they want to enlarge Israel and annex a part of the Sinai desert in Egypt, a part of Syria and then Lebanon. And you have a lot of Israeli army who started saying we want to eradicate Lebanon, and other people who say whatever. And all these theories and theories and theories and theories, and it's still happening on a part of Lebanon, etc., etc. And then you have a hit in Beirut. It's like, if I'm teasing you now, react. It's like as if somebody is like, are you going to react now? Are you going to react now? So it is very hard to give a huge opinion or to say something, because honestly, if I say what I'm thinking, honestly, when we say, if you say it out loud, it might happen. I don't want to say it. I just prefer not to say it. I just prefer to stay calm and to say, you know what? We cannot do anything. We're just waiting and seeing whatever is happening. On our end here in Lebanon, what we can do is, one, we are helping our fellow citizens and people that are living horrible times in the south of Lebanon. We are helping the people who are living horrible time in Palestine, in Gaza, and even in Ramallah and all the actually surrounding places in Palestine that are living in a fear and that are living hell right now. Let's call it hell. And what we can do is just support them with anything we're doing and wait and see whatever is going to happen, because whatever we say and however we say it, we don't know. We just don't know.